Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this very special episode of Conversational Cafe, where I meet with industry experts and exceptional people in e-commerce. My name is MC, and I'm Director of Partnerships at Heyday by Hootsuite, and I have Piers with me today, co-founder of We Make Websites. Piers, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat today.
Thank you for having me.
If you had to pick like a hot topic of the month or a hot topic of the year, like something that your clients and your customers are bringing up to you the most, what would it be?
I would say headless commerce would be up there for sure.
Yes, yeah.
And that is very much sort of buzz term. And when we're engaging with new clients, it's always sort of in the conversation. I think it's often confusing and people don't necessarily know why they might want to go that route,
Right.
or understand the full implications of changing from being a sort of Shopify setup or standard monolithic architecture to this composable commerce or headless commerce world. So we've got to really help people navigate that and make sure they're making the right decisions and going into that world knowing
What they're getting into.
all the pitfalls for sure. So that's definitely one hot topic for us. The other one I think is internationalization, and we're working with all these super fast growing e-com brands, partly as a result of the pandemic.
Right.
And everyone's looking to expand online, and that means geographic expansion for most people. So
For sure.
what we're doing with our brands is helping them make the right technical decisions and UX decisions into how you might expand into new geographies and grow that part of your business.
Yeah, I mean, I think on paper it's like, oh, this is a great idea, and it seems like something everybody should do, but it's quite a big project. I would say, right? Big undertaking. And so, can you explain, like in your own words, at the core, what going international is, internationalization, and why should brands consider it, in your opinion?
So when I talk about internationalization, I mean, expanding your current business and your current service into a new geographic location.
Yep.
The reason people would do it is because that is one way of expanding the reach of your business. You could say another one would be new products, new service offerings in the same market, but for a lot of people, it's more straightforward to do the same thing you're doing well in one market in a new market. That, of course, comes with a lot of challenges, but the benefit is you might double or triple or quadruple your customer base overnight, or audience overnight.
Yeah.
And that's for most businesses, it is the natural way. E-commerce businesses, particularly, is the natural way to grow.
It's like the next step. You've done really well in your market, and the next step to move forward, if you want to, as a business, is go cross border.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think geographically speaking, in Europe, there's a ton of opportunity because there's a lot of countries in a fairly small amount of space, I guess you could say. So it doesn't make it any easier, but it does. The opportunity is there, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think certainly pre-Brexit, it was even easier.
The B word.
The dreaded B word.
Yeah.
And for those countries that are still in the EU, it's still easy.
A little bit easier.
Easier. So that's added more complexities. But certainly, as a UK business, because your local market is not super large,
right.
you'll hit the point at which you need to expand internationally much sooner than you would, say, as a US business, where you've got much larger market to grow into domestically. So I think from our point of view as well, that meant that earlier in our sort of growth as an agency, we were working with smallish brands that were having these challenges almost a couple of years into their business, because that was the only way for them to expand. So we got a taste of what it's like to learn the complexities of international expansion and the kind of technological side of that pretty early on, particularly in an era when Shopify was not so strong at that. Obviously very strong now and has got a lot of new international features, but go back 5-6 years, that was not the case.
It was a lot more tricky, technically speaking, for a brand to use Shopify to go international. There was a lot of workarounds and a lot of things you had to plug in to make it work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think for you as an agency, brands look up to you a lot for advice on the best practices on how to go international. And so on that, what would you say is kind of one of the biggest pitfalls of brands going international, something that they might not have considered that they perhaps should have?
they're the obvious things that everyone thinks of, which is, you've got to ship your products to the place,
right.
and you likely want to sell in the currency of the market,
yep.
and ideally in their language. So that's what people think about. But I think that what isn't considered so much is all the slight cultural differences of, or the maybe not so slight cultural differences of selling in a different market. So even thinking about your products, a great example is there are lots of direct-to-consumer mattress companies in the world now. And I think I remember a story of one of them when they were entering the German market and not necessarily realizing that their product offering needed to be different, because in Germany, you don't buy double mattresses. They put 2 single mattresses together.
Yes, they do. Yes.
And same goes for like the content on your site. You need to make sure that you're using the right, if you're selling into a country where they use the metric system,
right.
you're a US brand, you're not used to that. You need to convert everything, or like clothing sizes. You might use different sizing for dress sizes, for example. If you're selling cars, you can't use an imagery of a right-hand drive car if you're selling into a left-hand drive car. So your content needs to be different. You can't use cultural references that don't work in other countries. So like even when you're just thinking about translation, like direct language translation's not enough. You need to be translating how you speak and your tone of voice and your references, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start unpacking that, there's just tons and tons of stuff. And then you get into things like legal hurdles and like landed cost and delivery duty paid and payment methods. We all, as in the UK and the US, you just assume the whole world pays on a credit card. That's not the case. A lot of countries, the preferred payment methods are direct debits or bank transfers or even cash on delivery. There's a whole world of, I don't want to say a world of pain, but a world of stuff to consider.
Yes.
And I guess what you're trying to do is the holy grail is having all of this stuff and making it feel like a completely local experience to someone shopping, and no different than they'd feel shopping for a brand that is based in their market. But of course, not everyone has the budget for that, so you're kind of picking and choosing. But I mean, I guess my point is it can be super involved.
For sure. I mean, I think people want to feel as much at home as possible when they're shopping, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily that the thing was made where they are, but to feel like it makes the most sense to them.
Yeah.
Have the least amount of friction in their shopping experience.
Yeah, I think reducing friction is something we talk about all the time in sort of user experience when we're talking about e-commerce. You want as few blockers in the process as possible. You're trying to reduce people's objections to buying from you or buying one of your products. Having your website properly localized to the market is a big part of that, because if they can't read it, or if it's in, they don't know how much they're going to pay for it, or they've got to pay for it in an unusual way, or they don't know how long it's going to take to get there. All that sort of stuff feels awkward, and it's going to stop a lot of people making that purchase. And
so kind of last question in terms of localization and going international, do you think, if a brand is offering multiple languages, let's say French, German, English, do you think it's also important for them to offer support in those languages? And do you think on the flip side of that if they don't offer support in those languages, that it might be something that will push certain customers away?
Yeah, I think if you have gone to the effort of translating your website, and then the customer support that goes alongside that is in a different language than you've been reading on the site, it's going to be very, very jarring, and that's certainly going to put people off. And I would say, whilst you go to every effort possible to answer all of a potential customer's questions on the product page, on your FAQ pages or whatever, there's always going to be some people that have more questions, and if they can't get that in their own language via customer support, then that's going to be the conversion blocker for them. Yeah, I mean, I think e-commerce is quite saturated now, and if there's a customer that goes on a website and they're really considering purchasing something, but they have that one final question that they really need to have an answer for in order to convert their purchase, and they can't find it in their language, they're probably going to find a competitor, that will be able to answer that question, and they might be the one to get the sale, right? Yeah, it's so easy just to switch to another website and buy from someone else who is offering the thing, is offering that localized customer support or can answer that question. Yeah, I mean, I think it's all kind of part of the broader user experience, for sure. For sure, yeah.
also in the realm of user experience, do you think there's a lot of value in having accessible answers to questions about, everyday things, FAQs, but also about products? If people have questions about product specifics and stuff like that, how important do you think it is in terms of conversions and a frictionless experience to have those as accessible as possible?
I think it's very, very important. I guess when you're trying to when you're designing a website, you are trying to make the buying experience kind of as close to physical shopping as possible, in the sense that what you don't have is the luxury of someone being able to hold the thing in their hand or try it on. So you're constantly trying to think of ways to answer those questions without the luxury of those things. So FAQs, more detailed product information, details that give you context about, so obvious one is the size of a model when they're wearing the clothes, all that sort of stuff. If you can show multiple models, different sizes and shapes, perfect. Yeah. Ideally, we'll reach a point where in augmented reality you can sort of try it on or something like that. But I mean, certain objects, sunglasses, watches, and things, you can do that nowadays, and that's hugely powerful, and all that stuff, as well as improving your conversion rate, reduces your returns rate. Yes. So, without having the augmented reality approach, let's say, for most people, having good FAQs, access to customer support that's quick and answers your question, and you can't predict all the questions. No, so I think that is really important to have that live, really good customer support on a website. I think all of that stuff definitely has a big impact on conversions, and like I say, return rate, because you're removing the unknown.
Yeah. And returns are, as you know, a huge investment for brands too, right? Like the amount of not just effort, but the amount of money that gets put into having an easy return process for most brands is huge, right? So if you can remove a maximum of those returns as possible, it's kind of great for everybody. So a lot of big brands today are putting a lot of time and effort into kind of merging the in-person experience that we used to have with the online experience, and also going one step further and improving the experience. And as we're talking about, product discoverability and stuff like that, there's a lot of effort that we're seeing being done to really have more product discoverability as part of the overall experience. And so how much effort do you think should be put into that today? And, what are the things that are maybe missing that you can see in terms of that?
Yeah, another good question. I think difficult to quantify the efforts, but I would say, I suppose, similar to before, online you are at a disadvantage in the sense you don't have someone that can come over to you and suggest something in a sense. But in another sense, you've got loads more power to be really looking at a user's behavior as they're on the site and as they're coming back to the site. And so you can build great sort of product discoverability through like really clever personalization. And I think, if you're not personalizing the experience, you're missing out massively. Yeah. And I think there's just such a long way you can take that. And I think the basics are, hey, you're looking at this, why don't you look at this stuff, or you've bought this, why don't you buy some of this stuff? But you could take it way further. And I've seen brands where I've come back to the site having searched for something, and my entire experience has changed. Even the kind of content that I'm being shown, not necessarily product content, is being promoted to me in a different way
based on your past behavior.
Exactly, that just feels. I mean, some people find that kind of creepy, but I think because I know how it's working, and it's not necessarily like invading my privacy. I feel comfortable with it, and it's actually great that I'm getting a better experience as a result, and I am finding products that are more relevant to me, or and I'm frankly probably spending more as a result. So I think a bad habit, but I think I mean it's hugely important, but quantifying the effort, I don't know. Just one of those things you've got to put a lot of effort into and experiment all the time and test, and then keep iterating.
It's always, I guess, being nimble and being apt to change, I guess, which is not always comfortable, I guess. Nobody likes change very much, but you kind of have to.
Yeah, I think the brands that do this well tend to be the sort of newer brands. Yeah. Because they've sort of grown up in a world where they haven't, like, change on their website particularly is not a huge effort. Tools like Shopify and all the other SaaS products that sit around it, you can plug and play stuff relatively easily without huge expense, which means you can experiment with things like personalization much more easily than you could before. And just the power of some of these tools that are around to meaning you don't have to build things anymore. Right. I mean, eventually we'll be out of work, but
hopefully not. But,
the power of some of these things for the relatively inexpensive nature of them is massive. And it allows for a lot of experimentation, like you say.
And so, as we're sitting here drinking coffee, I have to ask you if you had to pick one place in London with the best coffee ever, or in the UK, I guess. What would it be?
I've recently moved out of London, so I'm going to pick somewhere in Bath.
Okay, somewhere in Bath. You heard it here first. In Bath.
There's a place called Colonna and Smalls, and it is just, it's superb. Love that place. Great coffee, just a lovely vibe. Gotcha. It's nice. If I had to pick a London place, our old office was opposite a place called Proof Rock in Farringdon. That was really good.
Okay, so, and what's your go-to drink when you go?
A flat white.
Flat white.
It's quite boring, sorry.
That's fine. I love a good flat white. Awesome. Well, that was a lot of questions and a lot of awesome answers. Thank you so much, Piers, for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Great. And thanks everyone for watching.